Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome on stage the host of this keynote session, the Principal Analyst of OVUM, Tony Gunnarsson.
Hello, good morning everyone. We are now moving on to talking about India. I'm going to immediately introduce my colleague here, SHIBASIsh SARKAR, who is the Group CEO of Reliance Entertainment. And we're going to have a chat for the next half an hour or so about content and Indian content. Hey, please take a seat. Wow, so that was a pretty impressive reel there. I'm not sure if I was prepared for so much information in so short amount of time. Why don't you tell me a little bit about your company for the benefit of the people in the room?
Basically, I think Reliance Entertainment, clearly the position what we take in this space is that we are content creator. When I mean content creator, whether those contents, and we are agnostic to any screen. So whether the contents are made for feature film, contents are made for television, contents are made for animation, contents are made for gaming, contents are made for OTT or digital. So any kind of forms of content is basically the scope or role what we play in. And the key strength or the key objective of the organization is basically to harness talent. We feel that the most critical element for success of any content organization or creative organization is that how you can keep your creative partners, how you can keep your creative talents along with you in your goal and journey. And that's one of the large focus of the organization. Of course, understanding the market dynamics, of course, understanding the audience's preference, and take the company through similar kind of journey.
Okay. So in this era of OTT video, do you feel that content is evolving to serve the needs of a new base of buyers of content? Is it different these days than selling to traditional TV broadcasters, pay TV partners and so on? Is content changing?
Yeah, I think, see, the most important part of the most significant change, couple of changes what we can look into is that when you look at traditional content like be it a cinema or be it a television, or especially in case of television or pay TV, the whole concept of appointed viewing is gone, right? In case of OTT, an audience can come at his time and consume the content and move in and move out. When somebody goes to a cinema hall, it takes a lot of effort. You go to the cinema hall, you spend 2 hours, 3 hours time. You will rarely find situations where people dip in and dip out, or goes to the cinema hall then comes out if it's not working. But for OTT space, if you cannot hold the engagement of an audience, he will move to the next story, he will move to the next platform. So definitely as a storyteller, our responsibility has increased because we have to get that audience engaged and get to that audience hooked onto my storytelling or our storytelling. So yes, the style of content, the short taking of content, the kind of content are changing over the space, but positive thing is that it's changing for the better.
Sure. So if I pose a scenario, so US major streaming services like Netflix and Amazon, they, in order to capture audience and hold them for longer, they've been green-lighting series that are perhaps a little bit more different than broadcast TV type content, more sexual content, more violence, more perhaps sensitive political areas and things like this. That was a large trend behind those type of services. Do you feel that you need to, evolve content to serve, actual content on the creative side is changing for streaming services?
So definitely, the one interesting aspect what is happening is that a storyteller or a director can tell a story without a lot of limitations. When somebody is making a story for a pay TV channel or for a feature film, people have to be bothered about censor, people have to bother about regulations. It has to pass through certain culture, taste, but in case of OTT, at least in many countries, especially even in India, it is evolving. But as a storyteller, you can tell a story what you want to say. I mean, and I think at least in India, that is the biggest hook for the filmmakers to come and tell stories in this platform. So yes, we are also exploring, or we are experiencing edgy content, whether it is crime, sex, thriller, etc. But the fact of life is that before Narcos or after Narcos, there must be hundreds and thousands of gangster stories came, but not necessarily all of them audience got hooked into. So it is still a writer's medium. It's still a writer's director's medium. Yes, certain genre definitely attracts an audience more, makes it engaging, but you still have to write or still have to create that story which will hold the audience.
And does data play a role here?
Sorry?
Sort of data analysis of content, what works and so on?
Yes, that's the most important thing, because as storyteller or as content creating companies, we depend upon the platforms. We definitely get some amount of data, but not significant amount of data. But in some manner, you get from the understanding from the platform that when you create a story, actually even when you write a story, within the episode, at what stage, what should be the hook point, how it should take the audience from that one episode to the next episode. Because you drop a season on the Friday and you are expecting that the audience have to finish between Friday, Saturday, Sunday within the 3 days. So that's the whole concept of binge watching. You have to hold the audience's time. It's competitive because everybody is eyeing the same consumer. But yes, the data really helps in terms of the kind of stories, the kind of geographies, especially India being a very varied country with almost 25 to 30 languages in which stories are being told. You need to exactly get the mine the data pool and see that what kind of stories are working where.
And does release strategies, how have that changed? So, for example, famously, the big US services will launch an entire season in one go. More of the recent direct-to-consumer services like HBO, they still roll out a new episode every week. Is that something that plays a
So in India, what we are observing currently is still, we are observing, of course, in the whole scenario of OTT or series is opening up in the last 18-24 months. What we are observing currently is that it's all the episodes in one go. Because consumers who have been watching the pay TV or platforms, etc., they have used to seeing episodic content coming every day or coming every week. But currently in India, we are seeing that most of the content is coming on the same day.
Okay, so and that's something that consumers pay for. They pay extra for the benefits, and that's why they're migrating. Okay, that makes sense. I wanted to ask a little bit more about India specific. As we saw in the reel, there are multiple services, multi-million subscription base. Where's the growth in India, in Indian streaming currently? Where do you see that's growing?
So, okay, it's an interesting situation. There already, in India, we must be exploring in an organized form the OTT content consumption probably last 24 months, maybe last 24 to 30 months, all activities started, and probably last 18-24 months we are seeing the content on audiences. But fact of life is in these last 24 months, we are seeing close to 35 platforms in the country. We have the global biggies like a Netflix, Amazon, etc. of the world. Hotstar has been doing well. Almost all the pay TV platforms has opened up their channels in platforms like an Hotstar, Z5, Boot, Sony Live, etc. And then we have some of the regional players, but we are still just scraping the surface. In another way, if you look at it, that there are 35 platforms, they need at least one series a month, one original show a month. We are looking at 400 shows in a year. Our supply side is not ready. our production side, our talents, technicians are not ready. Nowadays, if you go to the market and you are talking of any cinematographer, DOP, writer, everybody is saying that I'm doing some shows or other. The opportunity what I see from, of course, between next 2 to 3 years, we'll see the volumes and the numbers will increase, but the next opportunity what I see is in the regional content. In India, as I mentioned you, that there are close to 25, 26 languages. In some manner, it's like a mini Europe. At best, one individual probably know not more than 3 to 4 languages, either speaking or writing, including the mother tongue and including the English. So you have to cater to so many audiences. The next big opportunity I look from the market is purely from regional. The other thing which I also like to mention here is that I think every time when we pitch the country outside and we pitch the country of 1.3 billion population, and therefore the consumer and therefore the opportunity. I think what is also happening is that Indian stories are going global. If you have noticed, I mean, in the AV there was a slide where the first Netflix show, Sacred Games, when it got launched in India, we figured out that 2/3 of the consumption happened outside India. So, as an Indian audience, when I see Fauda, when I see Money Heist, when I see Narcos, when I see any other languages, so language is not a barrier. If the storytellers has an ability to tell a story which cuts across, the stories are going global. So, I think the reverse opportunity what is happening for the storytellers from India is that not only there is an opportunity of how to cater this audience size within the country, but Indian stories are going global. And actually, I mean, it can cut across any language anywhere because language is not a barrier now for all practical purposes.
Absolutely. So content travels, right? To what extent do you feel that you're at mercy then of foreign partners, or do you international streaming services, or how can you drive content or sell content to make it travel better? Is there?
So, yeah, I think this kind of relationships happen on two sides. One is that either different content partners join hand. You see, one thing as a company even in the country, we always look forward is good writing, right? It's all in the writing. It's a writer-director's medium at the end of the day. So, companies like us, they have been structuring partnerships with interesting partners from either writers from LA or writers from different parts of the globe. Like Peter Safran has been partnering with us on 3 or 4 horror shows. Propagate has been partnering with some of the shows. Endeavor Content has been partnering with us on some of the shows. So when we look at these partnerships, there is not only an opportunity of looking that they will be able to take the story to a global audience, but also how they help in the sourcing a set of writers and etc. Similarly, honestly, from a platform-centric point of view, we cater content to everyone. I mean, I think as a content creative company, we are not agnostic that we want to tell for some platforms. So, of course, as an objective, or an aspiration, you want to tell a story which can travel to as many countries as possible. That's where the scenario is.
I wanted to take a moment to talk a little bit about devices. Of course, some observers call India a smartphone-first market. Content is viewed on a smaller screen than a TV. Do you agree with that?
Yeah.
Is that changing?
See, I'll tell you honestly, what's happened in India is that I think we started consuming content through mobile telephone first and internet later. I mean, it's something like that. We leapfrogged that one era. So, in a country, we have now close to something in the range of, say, 400 million smartphones, right? And in a country which has close to 800 million audiences seeing any kind of content through TV. So, naturally, in India, we have seen that content is first gets consumed on the mobile smartphone, but the dichotomy of the fact is that there are certain stories which you are probably okay to consume in this screen size. If you want to see a Game of Thrones, you will at least want to see a bigger screen. What is happening is that many of the platforms are looking to a situation that they're trying to get the consumer hooked onto a mobile phone and then try to upgrade them to a larger platform. As you will be familiar that a few months back, Netflix opened a very interesting pricing strategy at 199 rupees or something like a slightly less than $3 a month, vis-a-vis on mobile phone only consumer, vis-a-vis almost like a $12 a month for a consumer who has at the high end. So you can't ignore that. We have to see that how consumers are attracted on the smartphone, and as much as we like or dislike, I mean, that's the platform which will continue. But from an experience point of view, there is always a strive that how you can convert this consumer from a smaller screen to a larger screen.
So do you think there's an opportunity in vertical video or any content that is designed however you want to be consumed on a smartphone as opposed to a larger screen?
So yeah, I think there are different, so there are objectives clearly that there are long form contents and short form contents. Now mobile screen, as we have seen over a period of time, or consumer data says that it is difficult to hold audiences attention more than 7 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes timeline. So yeah, when people are commuting to their office either in the morning or back home in the evening, there is a substantial amount of consumption. I mean, the data says that almost 25 to 30% of content consumptions happen during the morning office hour and in the evening when they're going back home. So short form content is more equipped for that. You don't necessarily need to, from the quality and spectacle, you can make some kind of differentiator, both from the cost point of view and etc. But a larger screen is always, you have to up your game in terms of quality, in terms of the storytelling, because you have to hold the audience attention for not only 40-45 minutes, but leave a cliffhanger or the hook so that he goes to the next episode. So yeah, there is definitely different kinds of contents people need to plan looking at the size of the screen.
Okay. I wanted to ask you also about social networks, you know, the Facebooks, Google, and other social networks here in Asia. Is that a part of the future of content, you feel? I mean, we talk a lot about premium platforms, the Netflixes, and so on. What about those type of platforms?
Yeah,
they are known to be increasingly buying premium rights.
Right. So definitely, I think from an Indian perspective, Facebook, Insta, Twitter, all these platforms are becoming increasingly popular, and I mean, even from their global strategy point of view, India has become a very significant market. So yes, the contents are getting consumed substantially there, but to a large extent, it is UGC content. And there's definitely that game of monetization through ad model vis-a-vis a long-form content, somebody putting it across in a paid platform. The strategies are different. But as we say that in India being such a large country with so much of diversity, you have an opportunity for everyone. An interesting point, I mean, a slightly different point I want to make is that, like even on the pricing point, we have seen that India is following like, there are like in the, exactly like the fast moving consumer good industry, there are pricing of bundle pricing, or there is a pricing of sachet pricing, as we say. To give an example, like Z5 is a popular platform. They have a separate sachet pricing or small unit pricing for the regional content. Hotstar, when they launched in IPL, they launched during the cricket, they have a only sports pricing. The point I'm trying to make here is that as a model of business, even the social media platforms, which is basically ad-driven largely, but they are also getting equal significant size of content consumption. the whole monetization model is different. While they're also making noise that they will pick up the large long-form paid contents at the end of the day, but there is a room for everyone. Being a large country, there's a room for everyone.
Okay. So would you characterize Indian consumers as being price conscious?
Yes and no, I will mention. It is, see, there are two situations what has happened in India. I mean, why we have seen this significant growth of content consumption post 2015-16. One, of course, is, so there are two kinds of pricing we pay. One is for the data and one is for the subscription when I look at paid. Now, post 2015, post the launch of Jio, the data pricing was virtually free, right? For all practical purposes, the prices crashed and the data pricing was virtually free. So a significant new level of consumers who came onto the instruments, and the only price or the significant price was that, am I getting a content for, and am I paying money for the particular content to the subscriber, to the subscription platform, and is it worth or not? But the interesting part is that if you look at the price points in India, while there is close to 600,000 to 1 million consumers who are paying almost $12 a month for Netflix, Amazon has probably close to 10 million subscribers who are paying $1 a month or a little more than $1 a month. Then you have Hotstar, then you have Alt Balaji and etc. They are all less than $1, all the way between a month. So while there is a theory that yes, the Indian consumers are price sensitive and significantly that change or the habit shift depending upon the price point, at the same point of time, there is a niche premium audience who don't mind spending 10 times of the value for a Netflix subscription if they have to consume English content or if they have to consume significant content. The other interesting phenomena which we have to see, I mean, how the market will pan out probably next 2-3 months, that all the 3 major telcos in India have upped their pricing in the last 2 weeks, anything between 20 to 40%. So we have to probably see by December or probably by Jan-Feb, we'll see how the trend happens, that if the data pricing has significantly been increased both by Vodafone Idea, Airtel and Jio is following the suit. In that situation, how will the consumer behavior will change in that? So that's something which we have to see.
It's very interesting.
Yeah.
What about piracy? Is piracy a problem? Looking back at history of internet, piracy was a big threat for content to begin with, but then legitimate services arrived, and a lot of people stopped pirating.
I do agree. I think piracy is a problem. I mean, I remember that in spite of every kind of checks and balances, the day Sacred Game launched, and the next day when people are commuting on the local train and seeing it in some platforms or other, it breaks your heart. But at the end of the day, there is enough or significant consumer who are willing to pay. I mean, if you make a comparison, that when I go and buy a cinema ticket and go to a cinema hall, I pay barely $5, $6 for one single ticket. If I'm going with a family, I probably will end up paying 4 or 5 times of that with my popcorns and etc. So for a content consumer, I don't think the kind of subscription value which is there is not significantly expensive or something. You need to have cutting edge stories. You need to pull the audience to see the content, and that consumer will be willing to pay this money. So while the piracy problem is there, but there is enough audience beyond outside of that scope also to have a substantial business model.
Okay, we're nearly at time. We have a few more questions to go through. But so, if we look at the greater world of online video, we're seeing a lot of new services coming from companies that traditionally had pay TV channels or pay TV networks even, or sold through pay TV, but they're now going direct to consumer. Do you feel that there's a direct to consumer requirements for all content producers in the future to sort of essentially launch services and go direct to consumer? Or do you think that distribution is, how would you weigh up the needs of the future?
So I will give you an example that today a significant level of consumer in Indian households are consuming their 8 o'clock prime time show. They're not going at 8 o'clock, but they're going on their vision timeline. So the platforms are becoming even interesting for consuming catch-up TV. Means the whole concept of I need my freedom where I don't need a remote necessarily, and I don't need to see it at a particular point of time to consume what is my interesting story. That phenomena is definitely kicking, especially in the millennials or the next generation, probably the Gen Z. It's not only content, there are how many kinds or how many modes of entertainment are there, whether outdoor, whether indoor, whether gaming, whether media entertainment, every kind of live, esports. So it is virtually becoming difficult day by day, except maybe live sports or except maybe news, live news or any live program, to catch an audience at a particular point of time and say, hey, you sit in the household, but see my program at that point of time. So I will not be surprised that if going forward, this trend will only continue further, where actually the platforms will try to reach the audience directly through the platforms. I mean, maybe it will take maybe a little longer time, but yeah, I think the appointed viewing is going quite drastically.
So the rise of direct-to-consumer platforms, of course, require consumers to, essentially they have debundled and now they're rebundling, buying these individual services. How would you characterize India as a self-bundling market for services? Do you think consumers, they buy one service and two services, and then they churn out and move to another one? Is that part of?
Yeah, so I think,
how do you?
Exactly, I think in 90s in India, the cable and satellite opened up, right? Close to 30 years back. And in the first 10 years, we have seen similar situation. It started with one channel and probably it crossed a number of 600, 700 plus as on date. Very interestingly, TRAI recently came out with some regulation where it allows the consumer, at least the television channel consumer, to pick up completely like an a la carte. So you have a base price, you get an X number of channels. After that, whatever you want to buy, you pay that premium. And that whole bundling concept is going for a challenge. I think for OTT, actually we have to go through the cycle, because as a consumer, as an audience, some point of time, on your one TV screen, you have some 10 apps or 15 apps, etc. We are already in the country, have some 35 apps. And you want to consume one particular series because you have heard a good stories about it. So there will be a requirement of curation, there will be a requirement of bundling, rebundling. But currently, the market is clearly poised at you subscribe what you want. But with the numbers growing, and as I mentioned you that hardly the regional platforms are yet to launch in that gutso, 25 languages. And if you see that, if you want to see that, so I am very soon I am seeing the situation that in next 24 months to 36 months probably a host of new platforms will come. A lot of them will get merged and consolidated because it's a deep pocket game at the end of the day. But you still will require, at a consumer level, you still will require a certain kind of bundling, certain kind of rebundling before it goes through the same cycle what pay TV is going through it now.
All right, so we've got about 60 seconds left of this session. How would you see, what can we expect for the 2020s? We're at the dawn of a new era, new services are coming, next generation streaming services. What do you expect?
So it's from an Indian audience or India as a market point of view, I think it is it's a roaring opportunity. From the audience's perspective, we are expecting the launch of, when Apple or Warner or Comcast will, their next level of players are going to come. And from a storyteller's point of view, I think probably after the last 30 years, there's another range of opportunity where storytellers have all raring to go to tell their new stories. So I think it's a great, exciting time in the country. Yes, I think I started the conversation somewhere by saying that every time we make a point by saying that we are 1.3 billion population country, but now I think is the time to say that it is not only the consumer or not only the opportunity lying in the country, but the opportunity is for Indian stories to go global. I think that's the high point which I look at.
Thank you. That's a very good note to finish at. Okay, so that's it. Thank you very much, and join me.
Thank you, gentlemen. A round of applause, please.